Hey everyone, this is Todd. I wanted to let you know we're knee-deep in recording Beneath the Minute of the Apes, the second installment of our series, and we wanted to go ahead and toss one of these out here. It's in between. We've done it before, and if you don't know what it is, Richard, Sean, and I will often have moments between recording an episode where we talk about things on our mind, and we started thinking, hey, we have so much fun doing this. Let's put these out as special episodes. So here it is. This is us talking a little bit about superheroes with the Avengers coming out and whatnot, but a word to the wise, and you will hear me say it, but I want to make sure you know, if you have kids in the car, we do not bleep anything here. This is just three friends talking pop culture. So enjoy what we've got here, and we're going to be releasing new episodes of Minute of the Apes very soon.
To
well, see, the problem
comedy goes.
So actually, I just started this because what Richard's talking about, and you hear that, is that we're gonna do an in between.
Yeah.
We find it interesting.
Talk about a whole lot of crap in between.
What we
recording.
find interesting is that to this day, our one attempt at an in between, which is when we talk about things that aren't Planet of the Apes and we post it on a weekend, is still one of our highest rated episodes, and it's very, very well done.
Yeah.
But what Richard started off talking about was he needed to get some beer going if he was going to do some of this. So, Richard,
the
please
problem
drink.
Is, you didn't work out before this, did you?
I did work out.
Oh wait, you didn't. Well, you're not sweaty enough because that way you're supposed to be.
I am so ripe right now. You
How
can't
do
smell.
I know
that's
that?
Right. Sean can't smell
Screw
anything.
you. I have no
I
sense of
didn't
smell.
want to say anything.
I'm gonna
I moved this way.
I'm going to get a little closer to Sean now.
See,
That he can't smell.
to me, I guess you dried off, so I thought you didn't work out, so the beer's not affecting you as much as it would before. But yeah,
I'm only one beer in.
When we listen to in between, when we do in between, these are the rules. We do not bleep like we do any other day. So this is a weekend post thing. If you're listening with your kids, please know we're just simply going to be ourselves. We're also going to talk about whatever comes to our mind, probably for about the next 15, 20, 30 minutes.
whatever.
What we're going to start with, and this is where we kind of began talking.
The debate we were having.
Sean's, we were like, okay, let's do an in-between. What could we do? And he said, the Avengers is coming. And this is what I said. I said, I wish I was excited about it. And the reason I'm not is I have superhero fatigue. I loved Black Panther, loved it. Mm-hmm. But I have fatigue about the whole genre.
I own a comic book shop. You want to talk about superhero fatigue?
Hang on.
Cheers.
You win. Wait,
Richard
hey,
wins.
bitch, you leaving me hanging?
We're having a fight
So
right
the
now.
only thing that I'm worried about with the Avengers is it's too many characters being thrown at us. I feel like they're not going to be able to tell us enough story because we're having to have everybody make a cameo.
Also, remember, there's Avengers 4 after this, so they might deliberately be leaving us at a drop-off point where, if spoiler alert, if you know the original Infinity Wars stuff, where Galactus, where Thanos actually gets a glove and snaps his finger and half the universe size. Does that happen at the end of this movie and sets up the next movie?
Oh, I'm pretty sure what's going to happen in this movie is by the end of the first one, we're going to
I have no idea what y'all are talking
We're not
about.
helping
Yeah.
fatigue.
No.
I'm pretty sure that Thanos is going to kill most of the cast in the first movie, just because the story would unfold in the next part where
We have all new heroes coming in and
stuff
rebuilding.
like that. Yeah.
So let me throw out this, because I do think there are a lot of people with superhero fatigue. Even one of my really good friends who actually, I won't mention name, but buys his comics here from time to time. We were talking, and he had some superhero fatigue. And I think what it is for me, and I don't mind origin stories. I think origin stories are fine if there are interesting ways to tell the story. I think Black Panther did a great job of being an origin story without getting in the minutia of, oh, here's another person who's downtrodden and has to do that. There was elements of that, but not as much. What I'm tired of, and I realize Thanos is the big baddie. I get that, the biggest baddie. But the majority of the bad guys are boring in most superhero films now. Steppenwolf was not well done.
Well, yeah,
there are a number of those that are badly,
MacGuffin or whatever.
badly done. There are too many
But
things.
then you get something like Black Panther, where
Agreed.
you're sitting there scratching your chin going, I agree with the bad guy. He has a valid
and
argument
it goes back,
there.
and I know you want to say it goes back to what I still think, to me, on film is one of the best, which was Heath Ledger's Joker, because even in his insanity, you could go, I can see where somebody would kind of end up like that.
All right, so I have a problem with modern movies that I think will line up with your problem with superhero villainy. Mm-hmm. I'm getting so tired of CG characters expecting to lead or move a movie. When we went and saw Ready Player One, every single preview had some type of CG protagonist or villain or something to fight. And so I'm worried about Avengers that they will never actually be able to fully form Thanos as a character because he's going to be CG. If we go to Spider-Man Homecoming, Michael Keaton wasn't CG. If we go to Batman, Heath Ledger wasn't CG. If we go to Black Panther, Eric Killmonger was not CG. It didn't mean the characters didn't become CG when they, bounce around and jump around.
Right.
But maybe that's the difference. Steppenwolf can never be fully realized because he's just a CG character.
Well, this would be very interesting to see how you feel about the new Planet of the Apes movies where your antagonists and protagonists are all CG up against actual humans.
That's a very good point, because I was looking there in my mind and I thought, I see a lot of what you're saying, and I think a lot of it is true. But I do think that there are films that are doing fantastic work.
I think it really depends on the design of the character,
it's
and
everything.
The studios that are working on it, and I'm not taking anything away from the guy who played Steppenwolf, because I know he's from
a great actor,
Game of Thrones and all that stuff. But it goes into the work that's put into it. You see Andy Serkis and his performances with all his pretty much CG stuff, and that's amazing. It's not a CG. It's not a transformer out there that has no personality to it. I think if they had spent more time, developed the character,
and maybe that's what it was with Steppenwolf that I didn't care about, because I've said before that, and Sean, you know this very well, and I think Richard, you're learning this. Batman is my finger holds into the comic book world. Adore him, have since I was a child. And I will read things that as Sean comes along or Richard says, hey, read this. And I want to read those things, but I don't have the exposure you guys do. So I don't know a lot of these villains. I don't like what I can't stand if I see one more person that just wants to conquer the world. I'm done with it.
What do you do after that?
It's like, okay,
I have the world now. What do I do?
I kept thinking, why does Steppenwolf want this? They aren't telling me the why. And sometimes either telling me the why, or the genius of Heath Ledger's Joker is he lied about the why every time he could.
Every time.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's genius, because you're sitting there going, I get it. You're cuckoo. And that becomes what the character is. These characters are not interesting. The majority of the villains are stupid things in the way of the hurrah moments in these films, and that's the way I feel about a lot of them right now.
But the problem you're going to get into is you're not going to know about a Black Panther until you watch a Black Panther.
And I usually watch all. You know that I will watch these movies, but I will go in with such tired head.
But we are inundated with a lot of superhero content right now. Whether it's the television shows on the CW, whether it's the Marvel shows on Netflix, where it's the other occasional shows of Marvel that pop up on ABC or on Hulu, and then there's a superhero or a sci-fi movie coming out like
every
2 or 3 every single month right now.
There's a guaranteed 2 Marvel a year, probably 1 DC a year.
And they're hits, so they're not movies you can escape. Like they do well at the box office.
They're guaranteed to make more movies because they're going to do good.
I guess what bothers me is I've seen so many that I think are so good.
Yeah.
That when the other ones are just middling, and they're still fun, I get disappointed. It's much like I got into a Star Wars battle with a friend of ours that we used to work with many years ago in television. And if you think about a nerdy friend, you'll know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're thinking of.
The scope of storytelling when it becomes, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars, I think what Marvel has done fantastic. I think this whole idea that they've built a universe that feels like a universe, I think is outstanding.
Right.
Whoever was the person that architected that, or persons,
Kevin Feige,
fantastic job. I think Star Wars has been the exact opposite. I think Star Wars is a bit of a mess because I don't really buy. I think at this point everyone's seen The Last Jedi. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you build up a Snoke and you just. It's like, what is this? We don't have a big baddie. And I don't buy... I like Kylo Ren as a person who's falling apart, but there's no big baddie looming over everything, which has always been an idea in the Star Wars world. So many of these films...
You had an Emperor...
Yes. And it's where I thought the prequels were wrong. You never had one bad... You had the...
You had the Phantom Menace.
Yes, you had him pulling the strings in the background, but we never had one person. God, see, this is where in-betweens can jump all over the place. But you go back and look at the prequels. Why wasn't Grievous a character at the first of it who was injured, and then we see him relaunched into it, which is foreshadowing what happens to Vader, and now they're switching these bookends from a storytelling point. Why aren't we doing that? So many of these films outside of Marvel are not thinking like that. You can definitely say DC doesn't think like that. DC's connection to me is just crap.
Oh, in their movie universe?
Yes.
Well, yeah, because Marvel had the benefit of going in there with lowered expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Man came out.
And Marvel made a lot of mistakes before they made things right.
With the Ang Lee Hulk and the Punisher movies
and the Roger Corman Fantastic Four that's never really been seen.
All that kind of Ben Affleck Daredevil,
yeah,
that kind of stuff. But Marvel had the benefit of coming in with lowered expectations.
Right.
You knew who Robert Downey Jr. was, but you didn't necessarily. The mainstream public didn't know who Iron Man was.
And I guess that was the surprise in that.
So that snuck up on you. Oh wait, this I buy him as this character.
I think, and
there were still missteps. Iron Man 2 was not the best.
No, that wasn't very good.
I think Marvel Studios initially was a lot closer to Marvel Publishing at the time and relied upon its writers. And I think with DC, you're in a situation where it's a studio that's running everything that isn't connected to the comics. They're two separate. I mean, DC Comics basically just, okay, here's our properties, and then Warner Brothers is what makes these movies. But I don't think they really know who these characters are.
Don't you think maybe with I've wondered for the longest time with the problem with the DC Universe and Warner Brothers was how monstrously successful the Dark Knight stuff was.
They were cutting that off and starting anew, and people were expecting something more like that.
Well, and it's also that Chris Nolan is such a accomplished filmmaker that he was able, and he took some liberties that frankly are wrong. From the Batman freaks of the world, still seeing the Bat Pod go down the street and blow up cars when little kids are there. Don't know that I exactly
agree. Or just Batman
agree.
Being Batman for, 2 years and then retiring?
Yeah. And so there were problems with it, but he still did such a good job with that property. It's like they didn't think we have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And then they start trying to introduce it by bringing Zack Snyder, who has a different take on Superman that I don't still hate, but I don't love.
Yeah.
And it just seems like they were so disjointed. But Marvel...
There was a kid that came in that was probably, I say kid, he was probably 23, 24.
Kid.
And he was buying a Superman comic book for the first time, I think it was. And he asked me what I thought of Man of Steel. Mm-hmm. And I don't like that portrayal of Superman at all. I think that he's not the Boy Scout. He's just he's dark and gloomy and sad that he has powers, and he's not really... He doesn't need to help people outside of what's selfish for him.
Pa doesn't know if he's supposed to help people or not.
What was interesting for this 24-year-old, he really liked that Superman because that's the only Superman he's ever known.
And I can see that.
He didn't watch the Christopher Reeve movies. He wasn't really actively watching Smallville, the television shows. Mm-hmm. So for him, that was who Superman was, and he thought he was the coolest character ever. And I just wanted no, we got to set you right.
And the funny thing is, I agree with you, but I can also see where he's coming from. Because when I saw the film, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. What I found interesting is, there were obvious heavy-handed correlations to Christ. Heavy-handed. That whole thing when he flies away from the ship and his arms come out. I was like,
powers back.
I almost felt like somebody had just shoved a sword in my gut. But at the same time...
that's Batman versus Superman.
Oh, my bad. At the same time, I thought it was interesting... What I thought would have been interesting with a more accomplished filmmaker is to have somebody with those kind of powers come to Earth. A little afraid because the parent actually took a different method, but then seeing that, no, I need to step beyond that. And that's where I was hoping he was going to take Superman was, no, I understand who I am, and I Dad, I have to be me. Those kind of stories.
Oh, my gosh. Half of that movie was, what's his name, Waterworld talking. I was like, I couldn't deal.
Kevin Costner?
I couldn't deal. I couldn't deal with Pa Kent being just beating his son down with all types of his own philosophy. It was
when his dad is telling him, I don't know if you just should have saved everybody from drowning on a bus. That's a little bit not the message you want.
Not a good Pa Kent.
You go, you do that, son, but you be careful so that people don't see you.
And Amy Adams, who I think is amazing.
She's a great actress. Wrong.
That is not Lois Lane.
No.
She spent the entire time basically just in love with Superman. Mm-hmm. We never actually got to see her be an amazing reporter.
An investigative reporter.
Right.
Yeah.
But but you can also say that we've never seen Batman be a detective. There's very little detective work in any of the Dark Knight films.
Yeah, in the movies, for sure.
I mean, there's a little bit in the Dark Knight where he pulls the bullet out of the wall and does that forensic
stuff.
Shooting
all the other bullets into it to find out which still doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand what he's trying to do.
I don't understand what he's doing there either, but it was cool.
Yeah.
It looked cool.
Got to see a gun shoot a whole bunch.
I wish that DC would get it together, and I've said this before. Matt Reeves, who did and this ties it together with Planet of the Apes, who did 2 of the new Planet of the Apes films, is directing Batman now. I have so much hope.
Yeah.
He grew up a Batman fan, and he's even said that. Everything that you've never seen, I want to bring to film. I think he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you watch the new Planet of the Apes films he did, plus was it Let Me In? Was that his